Yes,
network.
there it is. Thank you. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what a virtual local network,
Yep.
local area network. I'm stuttering over my words. I'm so
No,
excited.
you good. Like I say, that's a concept you'll learn if you decide to go get your Network Plus certification. There's actually a chart that you got to build out. It's called a VLSM chart, a variable length subnet mask chart, where I actually got a video on YouTube explaining this. It's called a router on a stick concept. Matter of fact, here, I'll just, in case you want to watch it if you're bored. So this is me drawing this chart out, explaining what is called a router on a stick concept. Basically, I'll walk you through the steps on how to, we're assigning this IP address from the ISP,
Cool.
right? Which is going to be right here for our router, our public IP. But then I'm going to go through the process of showing you how to act as your own ISP so you can dish out your individual IP addresses to these devices that are hanging off this switch that's connected to this router. And basically, I go through the motions of showing you how to construct this chart called the VLSM chart, where I show you how to go through the mathematical process of how to do all this. And you can do this with pretty much any address. And then you see how I created all these IP addresses, all these different gateway IPs, network IDs, custom subnet masks. I'll show you what that is called, CIDR notation. I explain that in the video as well. It's like a 30-something minute video, but this is something that you'll learn. What's up?
I say, yeah, I see. I'm looking at what you're talking about right there. It's a lot going on there.
It looks complicated, but it's really not. This was my original IP address. And basically within this IP address, I created sub networks. So remember, this is the network that the ISP said, hey, this is the network for your home address. But then I took this network ID and broke it down and created sub networks up under it. So right here, I got a network right here, which is identified by this network ID. I got another network here, another network. So basically in this example, I created 1, 2, 3, 4, technically 5 different networks up in here out of this one IP. That's what this chart shows you how to do. So that way I can essentially go back and act as my own ISP. So over here, I got the marketing department, the HR department, and my switch and my router. Well, I want the marketing department to be on a different network from the HR department, right? So they're going to have their own different set of IPs, and they're going to have their own different set of IPs, and they'll be able to communicate. They'll be able to communicate, but this person won't be able to communicate with this person unless they pass their traffic through the router and come back down. Now, if they were all in the same network, I just had this one network, and this guy wanted to send a computer over here, he would just send his message. It would go through the switch and go through this computer. But I put these guys on a different network from each other. In order for networks to communicate with other networks, you have to have a router. So they pass their traffic through the router, and then it comes back down to this network over here. But anyways, that's what this video does. If you want to check that out,
I will. Didn't mean to cut you off right there.
You're good.
So you had your chart right there with the switch in the middle. Yeah, right there. Now that switch right there would be I just went over this the other day. It's a special kind of switch to where it separates.
So we're talking about a networking switch, right? So in this example right here, in your house, you have a router, your Wi-Fi router. Within your Wi-Fi router
is that switch. The
switching component is built into it.
Yeah.
Now in this example, I'm mostly talking about what's called a network switch, which is a standalone switch.
Yeah, which is in that server, in that punch panel.
Yeah, they can be attached to a punch panel,
Yeah.
I can't even think of the damn word. But anyway, they look something like this. You'll recognize because they got a whole bunch of damn ports.
Yeah, so those are logically separated, right? Man, I went over that. I cannot remember the name of it, but there's so basically instead of having to do that all in software, you can do that all in hardware, and they'd all be technically on the same network, but they're logically separated. So that's 2 ways of doing the same thing.
So in this example, we got two computers. They're physically connected to the same switch, but I logically separated them, creating what is called a VLAN, a virtual local area network.
There it is. Thank you. So that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what a virtual local network, local area network. I'm stuttering over my words. I'm so excited.
You're good. And so this process goes about showing you what happens after you create the VLANs. So now, obviously, I created a virtual local area network, which means I subnetted this thing, created 2 additional networks inside of this greater overall. Well, technically, it's 3. It's 1, 2, and 3. But I got 3 different networks going on up inside of here.
Yeah.
And like I say, this chart shows you how to go about creating it to assign it IP addresses for each of the networks. So as you can see in this chart right here, so here we go. We got the marketing department. Remember, I had those 2 computers in there. I would go over to the IP range and program up my router or whatever device, my DHCP for that network, and it will pick out an IP address for those computers out of this range. And as you can see, I got 124 different IPs to pick from. Then my HR department had 2 computers. Well, I put 50 over here. That's what these numbers stand for. And then they got a total of 60 IPs. They can pick up to 60 devices and get assigned an IP address out of this range for this network. And then my switch, we got 6 IPs up to 8 IP or whatever the damn 12 IPs right here. So that's how this thing all breaks down. That's what this whole chart is right here. Like I said, this is more so on some CCNA type of stuff. I mean, well, you got to get familiar with this for the Network Plus, but this is when you start programming up the routers and switches, you want to control the VLANs. This is where this stuff comes into play.
So when you're you have to have special equipment to subnet. You can't make different networks like that with just in software. You've got to have that special that makes VLANs, right?
Well, what it is, you just connect to the switch, right? So how it normally works is you got a computer. It's called a console cable. Looks something like this. One of these joints right here. It'll be like this little light blue looking color most times. On the back of the router or the switch, there's a console port. So you plug it in to your computer. However it connects, you got USB versions or whatever, and they physically connect from your computer to the back of the switch. I mean, to the router, depending upon which device you're dealing with. And then from there, there's a special software that you can download. It's called PuTTY. PUTTY. It looks like this. And then you will go in there and set up your parameters, and this will allow for your computer to interact with the interface of the router and the switch. And then once you have that set up, now we can get into programming Cisco router. It will look something like this. This is this is actually a screenshot of packet tracer. It looks identical to this. So as you can see, it will say router, then I type the enable, then I start typing these specific commands, configuration T. Now, my last iteration, because Zakiba, the guy that was here last night, he was part of my first iteration. When I started doing this last year, I used to go through and teach them some of this stuff. I wrote, matter of fact, here, I'll show you right now. I used to write up a bunch of labs. Let me find some of these labs. I used to write these labs up, explaining all these commands. So this is the stuff I was showing the students last time I was doing this. We were using a software called Packet Tracer to do this, which mimics the actual software of the router. I mean, it looks identical. And I was teaching them, these are the commands that you would type. So in this example right here, I had them log into the router, and then basically I'm telling them to assign an IP address and the subnet mask to a specific port on the router. And then also in this example, I think we're going to ping the router from a computer to see if we got, is that what we're doing up in here? Oh no. So we're going to ping the router to this server to establish connectivity, because I think the purpose of this lab was, so the purpose of this lab, we're building up a router configuration for this lab, and then we're going to transfer that configuration to this server, right? The server could be anywhere. And the reason why we're doing that, say this router crashed and died or whatever, instead of us having to reprogram it, I was telling them, hey, this is what you can do. We're just going to throw a new router on here. Then we're going to extract the configuration file from the server and have the router automatically build itself back up. So that's the purpose of this lab. But anyways, I will go through and I will show them the actual commands that you would type. So getting back to my video over here, as you can see, we're talking about IP ranges, custom subnet masks. Well, if I was doing this from scratch and I want to figure out what IP address, well, I can use my VLSM chart and come out here and pull out IP addresses from my chart and start assigning it to devices. You understand? Like right here as well. So that's basically how we were doing. I was showing the students how to do all this during my last iteration.